"Where should we go today?" Jonathan asked, extending his hand to Sadie as they emerged from the metro. "Maybe the cinema?" Sadie suggested with a sly smile, knowing Jonathan wouldn't be keen on sitting in a stuffy theatre for the third day in a row. Jonathan wasn't fond of the movies Sadie enjoyed. He preferred the tranquility of the park, but didn't want to disappoint her. "All right, let's go to the cinema," he said calmly, taking Sadie's hand and heading towards the cinema. "Wait!" Sadie stopped him, and then surprised him deeply. "Let's go to the park instead. We can walk, ride the carousel, and then sit at the café on the island." In the heart of the park lay a large lake, and at its centre was a small island adorned with a charming café and a terrace. "Are you sure?" Jonathan asked, his surprise evident. "You don't usually like walking, and you've never liked that café." Sadie laughed at Jonathan's astonishment. "But you don't like cinemas, and yet you go with me?" She shrugged. Jonathan smiled, and they walked hand in hand towards his favourite café. They spent the entire summer in this manner, and as winter approached and outdoor walks became chilly, Jonathan invited Sadie to his home to listen to music and meet his parents. Jonathan's parents were aware of his serious relationship, but hadn't met Sadie earlier, as they had spent the summer at their dacha. The meeting went well. Sadie made a good impression on Jonathan's parents. They found her intelligent, well-mannered and pleasant, if not strikingly beautiful. A few months later, Jonathan and Sadie got married. Jonathan's parents gifted the newlyweds a 2-bedroom apartment near their own and offered as much help as they could. Soon, Sadie gave birth to a girl named Molly. The new grandmother was overjoyed and doted on the baby, often taking her to her place and spending all her free time with her. When a son was born a year later, the workload increased for everyone except Sadie, who complained even more about fatigue, despite the help from Jonathan and his parents. The children spent most of their time with their grandmother, and as they grew older, they accompanied her to the summer house. Sadie began returning home late, often with the scent of alcohol on her breath, long after the children had gone to bed, and the dinner Jonathan had prepared had grown cold. Jonathan attempted to discuss the situation with her, but each conversation ended in heated arguments. The children, rarely seeing their mother, felt no warmth or connection with her, unlike the deep affection they shared with their father and grandparents. Tragedy struck when Jonathan, who worked in construction, was bedridden for months due to an accident. His parents did everything in their power to support him, taking out a bank loan for his operation, caring for the children, and visiting him regularly. Sadie, however, only visited the hospital twice. At home, chaos reigned. She neglected to pay rent and was often found in a semi-conscious state when her in-laws visited. Jonathan was eventually discharged but required bed rest, leaving his parents to shoulder most responsibilities. As his condition improved, Jonathan demanded that Sadie either take control of her life or leave them forever, but she remained indifferent. Soon after, Jonathan's father passed away, leaving Daphne to manage the loan repayments, utility bills for both apartments, and school supplies for the children. Money was tight, so Daphne took on additional jobs. She continued her day job as an accountant, worked as a cleaner in the evenings, and as a cloakroom attendant in the evenings, all to keep the family afloat amidst the turmoil. Despite her busy schedule, Daphne tried not to neglect her beloved dacha and took her grandchildren there whenever she could. Jonathan, now able to manage without assistance, moved into his mother's apartment and took over household duties. Unable to return to construction, he found work as a security guard, greatly easing Daphne's burden. Sadie, meanwhile, lived alone in the apartment, showing no signs of changing her lifestyle. Jonathan's patience ran out when Sadie started bringing men home. He packed her belongings and demanded she leave, but she broke down in tears, begging for help to overcome her addiction and promise to become a good wife and mother. Jonathan took pity on her. Sadie was admitted to a clinic, and within a month she returned home a changed person. For a while she tried to be a good homemaker and took the children back, but they felt uncomfortable around her. 2 weeks later she was found lying on the floor next to an empty bottle. The next morning Jonathan tried to talk to her, but she left and didn't return for a month, dishevelled and exhausted. She stayed at home for less than 2 days before disappearing again. Jonathan then moved in with his mother, taking the children with him, and rented out the apartment after changing the locks. When Sadie returned, she begged for help, but eventually left after realising her pleas were futile. Sadie had vanished for 2 years, only to resurface at Jonathan's doorstep, pleading for a fresh start. Her appearance was pitiful, and Jonathan, unable to turn her away, led her into the apartment to offer her a meal. The children looked at their mother with a mix of sympathy and detachment. "Sadie, if you like, you can live at our old dacha," Jonathan offered. "It's the only thing I can do for you. Mum and I bought a new dacha a while ago, and we haven't sold the old one yet, so live there, tend to the garden, find a job, but stay out of our lives. Don't torment me and the kids." Sadie eagerly agreed, and the children were content with this arrangement. They didn't harbour warm feelings for their mother, but they still felt a sense of pity for her situation. Sadie moved into the dacha, but she had no intention of maintaining the garden or the property. Instead, she brought in a man her age and lived there with him, letting the house and plot fall into disrepair. Sadie moved into the dacha, but she had no intention of maintaining the garden or the property. Instead, she brought in a man her age and lived there with him, letting the house and plot fall into disrepair. As the children grew older and attempted to visit their mother, she refused to let them inside. "Remember your mother now," Sadie spat, her words slurred and bitter. "Get out of here. I don't need you. This is my husband now, and you are nobody to me." This harsh rejection was the final straw in the children's relationship with their mother. From that day forward, Sadie ceased to exist in their hearts, her actions severing any remaining ties of familial affection. The children and Jonathan moved on, finding solace and strength in their bond with each other. Time passed. Jonathan's daughter Molly got married and had a beautiful baby boy, while his son enrolled in university and worked as a stocker in a store in his spare time. Jonathan and his son lived with his mother, while Molly and her family lived in Jonathan's apartment. Life was gradually improving. One day the phone rang in Molly's apartment. It was Sadie, calling for the first time in years. Without even asking how her daughter was doing, she got straight to the point. "I'm very ill in the hospital. Bring me some pyjamas and slippers. I have nothing to wear. And some food. I'm starving." Molly hesitated, but decided to visit her mother, hoping to see remorse in her eyes. She brought the necessary items and upon entering the hospital room, froze in the doorway. The pale, emaciated woman bore little resemblance to the mother she once knew. Molly stood confused, unsure of what to say. "I'm very ill," Sadie said. "You should take care of me. Don't abandon me. Visit more often," she added in an almost commanding tone. Molly snapped out of her stupor and coldly remarked that Sadie hadn't visited them once and probably hadn't even remembered she had children. "Why are you so rude to your mother?" Sadie retorted, displeased. "Mother? You?" Molly exclaimed. "My only mother is my grandmother who raised us and never abandoned us," she said and rushed out of the ward. 2 months later, there was a knock at Molly's door. It was Sadie. She complained of being unwell and asked to let stay. "Your father gave you a nice warm house in the village," Molly replied after a moment's hesitation. "I'll let you in to eat, but you won't stay here." After Sadie had eaten, Jonathan entered the apartment with his grandchild in his arms. His initial surprise at seeing his ex-wife quickly turned to anger. "Leave immediately," he demanded. "I have nowhere to go," Sadie wailed. "I have no money, no place to live." Disgusted, Jonathan cast a contemptuous glance. Then, feeling a mix of anger and resolve, he took Sadie by the arm and firmly led her out of the apartment. As they reached the doorway, he turned to her and said, "Listen carefully, Sadie. This is the last time you will bother us. You have caused enough pain and trouble. Stay away from us and do not come back. We have moved on, and you are no longer part of our lives." With those words, he pushed her out the door and closed it firmly behind her, hoping she understood that there was no turning back.